All right, let's take a look at question number 6. In question 6, we're going to be looking at how to apply the factoring of trinomials technique to an area problem. Question 6 reads, the area of a rectangle is represented by the quadratic expression 3x squared minus 10x minus 8. Question, which expression can also be used to represent the area of the same rectangle? Okay, so let's just give ourselves a visual representation of what's going on here. So we have a rectangle, and the area is given by um, the expression 3x squared minus 10x minus 8. And from geometry, we know that the formula for area is length times width. So what binomial expressions can we use to represent the width of this rectangle and the length in such a way that when we apply this geometry formula, area is equal to length times width, we will end up with this quadratic trinomial? Now there are two ways you can solve this problem. You can simply just multiply each and every one of them to see which one generates this quadratic trinomial upon simplification, or we can factor. Okay, so in this presentation we're going to be going over how to factor trinomials, so we're going to go over the process in detail. Alright, so let's see what we have here. We have the quadratic trinomial 3x squared minus 10x minus 8. Now we're going to be using a factorization method known as the AC method or the X game. There are other methods that can be used to factor quadratic trinomials, whichever one you feel most comfortable with. Feel free to employ that method, okay? So the X game is as follows. What we'll do is we're going to extract A times C and B from the quadratic trinomial. Alright, so as we can see, it's already in standard form. Basically, we have the terms ordered in descending order of degree. So degree 2 term, degree 1 term, and degree 0 term. So the coefficient of the highest degree term is A. So A is 3, B is negative 10, and C is negative 8. Alright, so let's write it down. A is 3, B is negative 10, and C is negative 8. Alright, so AC is a product of 3 and negative 8, which gives us negative 24. And then B is negative 10. Alright, now we're going to play the X game. Now to play this game, we're going to think about two numbers that multiply to give us the top, negative 24, and add to give us negative 10. Okay? That will enable us to express this quadratic trinomial as a quadratic with 4 terms, and we can split it down the center and factor by grouping. Now to help us to determine what those two special numbers are that can enable us to factor by grouping, we're going to write down all the product of integers that yield the product 24. Okay, so what two numbers multiply to give you 24? What's two integers? 1 times 24 gives us 24. 2 times 12. Does 3 go into 24? Absolutely. 3 times 8. Does 4 go? It certainly does. 4 goes into 24. 6 times 5 doesn't go. We have a complete loop. Alright, so which pair of numbers gives us 10? Let's focus on the number first before the sign. Alright, so we have 1 and 24 gives us 23 or 25. That's no good. 2 and 12 gives us 10, which is good. 3 and 8 gives us 11 or 5. 4 and 6 gives us 10 or 2. So we have two candidates here, which makes this problem a little bit complicated. It's either 212 or 46. So which one are we going to use? Let's try 212 first and see if we can play with the signs in such a way that this X game works. If we can't figure it out, then we have to resort to trying out 46, okay? So the sum is negative and the product is negative. If the product is negative, that means the signs have to be different. If the sum is negative, that means the bigger number must be negative. Or both of them is negative, which is not applicable here. Alright, so 2 times negative 12 is negative 24, excellent, and 2 minus 12 is negative 10, so that works perfectly. Alright, so the desired pair that we are going to be using for factoring this quadratic trinomial is 212. Now what we're going to do is replace the middle term with these two numbers. So we will have 3x squared, and instead of negative 10x, we'll replace it with the two numbers we just got, plus 2x minus 12x. So we insert the numbers in the middle and then just put x's next to each of them. All right, now we have four terms. We can now factor by grouping. We'll break it down the center and factor by grouping. Now, let's see. From the first two, we're going to factor out the greatest common factor, and then from the next two, we will also factor out the greatest common factor. Now, for some of us, we can easily just inspect and see what the greatest common factors are, but let me show you the steps that results in that. Okay, so we'll break this down. We'll have 3 times x plus 2 times x. And then here we pull out minus. If we break down 12, 12 can be broken down. Let's use a factor tree. 2 goes into 12 6 times, and then 2 goes into 6 3 times. So it's 2 times 3, 2 times 2 times 3. And then if you break down 8 into product of factors, 2 4, 2 2. So it's 2 times 2 times 2. So for 8, we're going to have 2 times 2 times 2. Alrighty? Okay. Now, from the first two, well, we can group this together in the parentheses. From the first two, we want to pull out the LCD, the greatest common factor, not the LCD, the GCF. The GCF, we have x and x that are common here, so we're going to factor that out. So we factor out the x. And when we factor out a common factor, what we're doing is we're dividing by that factor. So this x is divided out to be a 1, this x is divided out to be a 1, and we are left with 3x plus 2. Alright, now on the right side here, we bring down the minus. So now that we are factoring out a minus, you want to proceed with caution, okay? So we'll put a parenthesis here. Whenever you factor out a minus, what happens is that this sign changes to the opposite. So this plus, this minus actually switches into a plus because I pulled out a minus there. Alright? Now what can we factor out? 2 2's from both sides of this sign. So 2 times 2 is 4. So we have 4 on the outside. So now what we have done is we just factored out 2 2's. So 2 divided here 1. That's a 4 factored out. And over here 2, that's another 4 factored out. Now we're left with, oh, there should be an x right here. Let's put an x here. So we're left with 3x plus 2. Okay? Alright, so now we're going to solve and check and see how we're looking. The quantities in the parentheses, we'll ask ourselves, are they the same? And the answer is yes. So 3x plus 2 and 3x plus 2 are the same. So we factored it out into its own parentheses. 3x plus 2 and 3x plus 2. Because these two quantities here are identical. Alright, and then what's left? We are left with x minus 4. What do we do with that? We group them together in their own nice little parentheses. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the factored form of the quadratic trinomial. Alright, so we can think about, we could call 3x plus 2 the length, or x minus 2 the width. It doesn't really matter. And then we have the area being equal to this desired expression, 3x squared minus 10x minus 8. Alright, so we now know what the length and the width are. So let's write it here. 3x squared minus 10x minus 8 is equal to 3x plus 2 times x minus 4. And our answer is option number 1.